Rico, 787. Please state your name and what you want to talk about.
Hi, my name is Daniel, and well, I just wanted to say it's great to talk to you, Mr. Mesereau. It's a great honor. And well, what I wanted to bring up was Aphrodite Jones again. Now, I understand and I agree with what you're saying that she may not have investigated the Jordan Chandler case, and of course she has her rights to have her doubts, but I found that the reason why so many fans are upset with her is because in regards to June Chandler's testimony, she wrote a passage in her book that basically said, to summarize it, that she says that the jurors were unimpressed and that that her testimony was unconvincing. That's basically what she wrote in her book. And now for her to say what she's saying now, it's like she's doing an about face. And that is mainly why people are upset with her, because she says one thing when she wrote the book, and now she's saying a completely different thing. So I just wanted to know what your opinions are on that.
Well, again, I'd like to give her the benefit of the doubt because she did such a great service to all of us when she, was relentless in her desire to get the truth out about the trial, which the publishing industry didn't want, and she wanted to do. So I haven't read that section in her book for quite a while. I remember talking to some jurors who were not very impressed with June Chandler. There was one female juror who actually told me after the trial that she thought Michael was infatuated with June and thought that June took advantage of that. But clearly, June Chandler's testimony did not sway this very conservative jury in this very conservative courthouse. But again, if Aphrodite, has thought about that testimony and, has some concerns about it, which she admits she's never thoroughly investigated and has not reached any conclusions about, I wouldn't deny her, the right to express her reservations as long as she says, but I really don't know. I haven't, spent time looking into that. So I can understand why fans are upset, but I also think you've got to, understand that she did everybody a great service, and she told me she hasn't reached any conclusion about the Chandler case at all, but she was bothered by some of the testimony. I don't know what else I can tell you. I just hope people will continue to read her book, Michael Jackson Conspiracy, because I think it's an important book.
I agree. But my other question, I guess, would be about, it's actually two other questions. I don't know how I should word this, but I guess one would be about Wade Robson, or Robson, however you pronounce his name. There's been, he's made his interview on the Today Show back in May, I believe.
Right.
And since then, he's been quiet. But then, of course, over these last several months, he's made other statements, talking about, like, for instance, when the Sunday People posted that ridiculous FBI file story about, how supposedly Michael paid off 24 families or something to that effect. And, of course, it was discredited. But then, of course, Wade jumped in to say that, this proves that my allegations are true. And then once that story was proven false, he stayed quiet. And then later he makes a story saying that Michael is responsible for his father's deaths. And then these other bizarre stories. Now, I'm just wondering how much you've been following that situation, or what your opinions are in regards to this man's credibility, or what you remember when you saw him in person in 2005.
When I first met Wade Robson, he was with his mother and his sister, and they were all very, very pro Michael Jackson. Wade impressed me as a very intelligent, very articulate, very sensitive, mature young man who was adamant that he had never been molested or inappropriately touched by Michael at any time. I learned that his mother and sister had traveled with them on numerous occasions. They were equally convinced Michael Jackson never did anything appropriate, based on their, discussions with Wade. And I was so impressed with him that I made him my first witness in the defense case. And, the decision to put on a defense case was a difficult one because our cross-examination of the prosecution witnesses I thought had been so effective that I think probably 99% of lawyers would have probably not put on a defense case and just, rested right there, thinking there was enough reasonable doubt. My concern was that I made a lot of promises to the jurors, and I felt that we'd probably get a hung jury if I didn't put on a case, and then Michael would be put through a retrial, which would have been difficult. So I made the decision to put on an extensive defense case, and if you do that, you want to start strong and you want to end strong. And I started with Wade Robson because I thought he was such a powerful witness for us, and he was. Our defense case began with Wade Robson and ended with Chris Tucker, two powerful witnesses for Michael Jackson. And I was utterly shocked when I heard that he was now claiming that he had been molested. And, I don't know what their theory is. Is it repressed memory? I don't know. At first I was told the lawyers were claiming it was repressed memory, his lawyers. And then he went on to today's show and, as I recall, said words to the effect that it was not a repressed memory case. But you have to understand, I'm not litigating this case. This case is being litigated by the Michael Jackson estate, and I believe Howard Weitzman is the lead lawyer in that case. And I'm told the case is still going on, but I don't know what kind of activity there's been. I am concerned that the lawyers litigating the case are, Weitzman and Branca, because, they were around Michael when he engaged in these other settlements. So, I just hope if it gets to trial, they're willing to walk in and try it. I'm hoping that they can get the case thrown out on either procedural grounds or legal grounds before it ever gets to trial. And those kinds of grounds could have to do with whether or not it was filed too late, whether, the facts are just too thin. I just don't know. I'm not involved in it. I'm not involved in the Michael Jackson estate. I don't represent them. I don't go to their functions. I'm not invited to their functions. I just don't. I don't have anything to do with the estate, so I don't really know what they're up to. But I have concerns that these lawyers may just decide to pay money and enter into a confidential settlement and get rid of it, like was done before on two occasions, Chandler and Jason Brunzy. And if the word ever got out that happened again, I think it would be disastrous. But I can't tell you what posture the case is in because I'm not litigating it. And I assume that if it ever got to trial, if these lawyers are willing to try it for the estate, I probably would be a witness because I did interview him and call him as a witness. And I'm telling you, I remember Ron Zonin, a really good prosecutor, one of the more effective prosecutors I've ever faced, cross-examining Wade Robson and just getting frustrated and just attacking him. And Wade just, stood his ground and was just, at one point he said words to the effect, these claims are ridiculous, So I'm just amazed that at this late date he's come out despite all these contrary statements. But I'm not really involved in that lawsuit.
Well, it's ridiculous to me. I mean, I'm not sure. No, I don't know if you're aware of this, but now even his sister is supporting him. Chantal Robson, her name is. So,
yeah,
it really,
yeah, she was
really
a witness.
Yeah, she was a witness also. So I don't know where they get off doing that. I mean, they so adamantly defended Michael for so many years. Do they really expect people to just buy them, what they're saying now? Like they don't have to answer for what all their defense of him for all these years? And, I thought about it myself, and, there's been a lot of discussion in the fan community about why Wade has done this. And, of course, by his own admission, he's not getting much work. He doesn't really have much money to his name. he has a wife and a child to support, and you know, it it makes, if you really think about his tactics, like for instance, why he says he was abused for 7 years, why he makes this big long date of molestation, is because he has to find a way to disavow every single praise he sung Michael every time he defended him. Because, say for instance, he was going to say that Michael molested him after 1993, it wouldn't make sense because Wade defended Michael in the 1993 case. So what sense would it have made if, you know, he defends Michael even after being involved in that sort of case? It doesn't make sense. So, of course, he would say it happened for all these years, that he was, quote-unquote, brainwashed. And, you know, even if you, and then even thinking of it like that, what sense would it make that Michael would do something to Wade when the eyes of the world are on him, especially during the early 90s? So,
you know,
I don't know, that's just...
Again, we have to get back to that disastrous Jordy Chandler settlement and the one that followed with Jason Franzi, which I never knew about till I was already defending Michael. I was able to dig through this evidence. Susan Yu was just magnificent and brilliant in the way she dug through the evidence. And I began to realize that there had been a second settlement, which I hadn't known about. And that was settled not that long after the Chandler settlement. And again, so many of these problems get back to the Chandler settlement because that was a tremendous amount of money. I'm informed that it was invested very wisely and that it tripled in value. So, you know, Mr. Chandler is reportedly very wealthy, and you can't tell me that hasn't affected other people like Mr. Robson. I have to assume it has. I just hope they don't settle again, because if these lawyers settle it, it won't be their money that's paid. It will be the estate money that's paid. And if a judge lets it get to trial, they may be too afraid to try it.
And then you might have other people come out of the woodwork.
Well, if the word got out, you're absolutely correct. Just like, look what happened after the Jordy Chandler settlement. Suddenly, Michael was getting sued left and right, security guards at Neverland, security guards at Havenhurst. You know, it just got ridiculous. I think the word got out, why work when you can sue Michael Jackson? You know, he'll pay big money. And
Right.
It was a nightmare. And Michael told me that Chandler settlement turned out to be a total nightmare for him. And you may recall, anyone who followed the trial closely, that before we got to trial, I made a public statement with the judge's permission that these settlements were disasters, that Michael regretted entering into them, that he was advised by others to do it, that it would make business sense, and he regretted ever doing it. I had to do that to try and deal with this groundswell of public opinion, which essentially said, what innocent person would pay this kind of money to settle? It was like an albatross around my neck going into the trial, and then the trial judge, Judge Melville, allowed the prosecution to bring in evidence that he had settled those two cases, Chandler and Franzi. So I think this Wade Robson incident, it's just my opinion,
Right.
is an offshoot of that disastrous 1993 Chandler settlement. Again, I want to emphasize, I think his lawyers, Howard Weitzman, Johnny Cochran, John Brank, I understand, was his general counsel, and I think they all thought this was the right way to go. I think they had Michael's interest in mind. I don't think for a second anybody was trying to hurt him. And I didn't know Michael at the time. I wasn't involved in any of these discussions. I don't believe it was just Johnny Cochran's idea, like I'm told Brank and Weitzman are saying. I think they all decided it was in his best interest. He should get this behind him and move on. And it just turned out that it opened Pandora's box. Suddenly you had Arvizo, and you had